Okay, welcome back. We are going to continue on in the New King James Version of the Bible, 2 Samuel chapter 15, 16, and 17. Chapter 15 talks, oh, by the way, if you read the description, I do include all the characters that are involved in the chapters I just read, who they are, and then also timelines of like what's going on, like where we are in time. So the year is included as well. So um that's just to give some context and reference. And then I like to include what was happening around the world in that time because all of this is history, you guys. History. So let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 15, we're talking about Absalom's treason. David escapes from Jerusalem. Chapter 16, we're talking about Mephibosheth's servant. Shimei curses David, the advice of Ahithophel. Ahithophel. Chapter 17, we talk about the advice of Hushai, and then Hushai warns David to escape. So let's go ahead and get started. I hope everyone had a great day. Um, we need to finish this Bible. I should have been halfway done by now, but life gets in the way but we're still going to do it, okay? So I'm reading from the New King James Version. So if you pull out your Bibles, we're at 2 Samuel, that's still in the Old Testament. Chapter 15, verse 1. After this, it happened that Absalom provided himself with chariots and horses. Now, and 50 men to run before him. Now Absalom would rise early and stand beside the gate. So it was, whenever anyone who had a lawsuit came to the king for a decision, that Absalom would call to him and say, "What city are you from?" And he would say, "Your servant is from such and such, and of a tribe of Israel." Then Absalom would say to him, "Look, your case is good and right, but there is no deputy of the king to hear you." Verse 4. Moreover, Absalom would say, "Oh, that I were made judge in the land, and everyone who has any suit or cause would come to me. Then I would give him justice." Verse 5. And so it was, whenever anyone came near to bow down to him, that he would put his hand and take him and kiss him. In this manner, Absalom acted toward all of Israel who came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. Now it came to pass after 40 years that Absalom said to the king, "Please let me go to Hebron and pay the vow which I made to the Lord. For your servant took a vow while I dwelt in Geshur in Syria, saying, 'If the Lord indeed brings me back to Jerusalem, then I will serve the Lord.' And the king said to him, 'Go in peace.' So he arose and went to Hebron. Then Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, 'As soon as you hear the sound of the trumpet, then you shall say, Absalom reigns in Hebron.' And with Absalom went 200 men. And with Absalom went 200 men invited from Jerusalem, and they went along innocently and did not know anything. Then Absalom sent for Ahithophel, the Gelonite, David's counselor, from his city, from Gilo, which he offered sacrifices, and the conspiracy grew strong. For the people with Absalom continually increased in number. Now a messenger, verse 13, now a messenger came to David and saying, "The hearts of the men of Israel are with Absalom." So David said to all his servants who were with him at Absalom, "Arise and let us flee, or we shall not escape from Absalom. Make haste to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly and bring disaster upon us and strike the city with the edge of the sword." And the king's servants said to the king, "We are your servants, ready to do whatever my lord the king commands." Then the king went out with all of his household after him, but the king left 10 women concubines to keep the house. And the king went out with all the people after him and stopped at the outskirts. Then all his servants passed before him, and all of the Cherethites, all of the Pelethites, all of the Gittites, 600 men who had followed him from Gath, passed before the king. Then the king said to Ittai the Gittite, "Why are you going? Why are you also going with us? Return and remain with the king, for you are a foreigner and also an exile from your own place. In fact, you came only yesterday. Should I make you wander up and down with us today, since I go, I know not where?" Return and take your brethren back. Mercy and truth be with you. But Ittai answered the king and said, As the Lord lives, and as my lord the king lives, surely in whatever place my lord the king shall be, whether in death or life, even there also your servant shall be. So David said to the Hittite, Go and cross over. Then Ittai the Gittite and all of his men and all the little ones were with him crossed over. And all the country wept with a loud voice, and all the people crossed over. The king himself also crossed over the brook Kidron, and all the people crossed over towards the way of the wilderness. There was Zodak also, and all the Levites with him, bearing the ark of the covenant in God, and they set down the ark of God, and Abiathar went up until all the people finished crossing over from the city. Then the king said to Zadok, Carry the ark of the God back to the city. If I find favor in the eyes of the Lord, he will bring back and show with me both it and its dwelling place. But if he says thus, I have no delight. Oh, there's my cat, Axel. Okay. Anyways, we have a guest appearance. Okay. Verse 26. But if he says, I have no delight in you, here I am. Let him do to me as it seems good to him. The king also said to Zadok the priest, Are you not a seer? Return to the city in peace, and your two sons with you, Ahimaaz and your son Jonathan, the son of Abiathar. See, I will not wait in the plains of wilderness until the word comes from you to inform me. Therefore, Zadok and Abiathar carried the ark of God back to Jerusalem, and they remained there. So David went up by ascent of the Mount of Olives and wept as he went up. And he had his head covered, and he went barefoot. And all the people were with him covered their heads and went up, weeping as they went up. Then someone told David, Ahithophel is among the conspirators with Absalom. And David said, Oh Lord, oh my gosh, Axel. Then someone told David, saying, Ahithophel is among the conspirators which Absalom. And David said, O Lord, I pray, turn the counsel of Ahithophel into foolishness. Now it happened when David had come to the top of the mountain where he worshipped God, there was Hushai the Archite coming in to meet him with the robe torn and dust on his head. David said to him, If you go on with me, then you will become a burden to me. But if you return to the city and say to Absalom, I will be your servant, O king, as I was your father's servant previously, so I will now also be your servant, then you may defeat the counsel of Ahithophel for me. And do you not have Zadok and Abiathar and the priests with you there? Therefore, it will be that whatever you hear from the king's house, you shall tell Zadok and Abiathar the priests. Indeed, they have there where their two sons, Ahimaaz, Zadok's son, and Jonathan, Abiathar's son, and by them you shall send me everything you hear. So Hushai, David's friend, went into the city, and Absalom came into Jerusalem. 2 Samuel chapter 16. Mephibosheth's servant. When David was a little past the top of the mountain where Ziba, the servant of Mephibosheth, there Mephibosheth, who met with him a couple of saddled donkeys, and on them 200 loaves of bread, 100 clusters of raisins, 100 summer fruits, and a skin of wine. And the king said to Ziba, What do you mean to do with these? So Ziba said, The donkeys are for the king's household to ride on. the bread and the summer fruit for the young men to eat, and the wine for those who are faint in the wilderness to drink. Verse 3. And then the king said, "And where is your master's son?" And Ziba said to the king, "Indeed, he is staying in Jerusalem, for he said, 'Today the house of Israel will restore the kingdom of my father to me.'" So the king said to Ziba, "Here, all that belongs to Mephibosheth is yours." And Ziba said, "I humbly now before you, and I may find favor in your sight, my lord, O king." Verse 5. Shemal curses David. Now, when King David came to Bahurim, there was a man from the family of the house of Saul, whose name was Shimei, the son of Gera. Coming from there, he came out cursing continuously as he came. And he threw stones at David and at all the servants of King David. And all the people and all the mighty men were on his right hand and on his left. Also, Shimei said thus when he cursed, come out, you bloodthirsty man, you rogue. The Lord has brought upon you all of the blood of the house of Saul, in whose place you have reigned, and the Lord has delivered the kingdom into the hand of Absalom, your son. So now you are caught in your own evil, because you are a bloodthirsty man. Ooh, look at that. Just accusing David of. Anyways. Then Abshai, the son of Zerai, said to the king, "Why should this dead dog curse my lord the king? Please let me go over and take off his head." But the king said, "What have I to do with you, you sons of Zerai? So let him curse, because the Lord has said to him, 'Curse David.' Who then shall say, 'Why have you done so?'" And David said to Abshai and all of his servants, "See how my son who came up from my own oof, see how okay. And David said to Abishai and all of his servants, "See how my son who came from my own body seeks my life? How much more now may this Benjamite? Let him alone and let him curse, for so the Lord has ordered him." Right? You just become stronger because, like, listen, you can't phase me. I got people who are in my own household that wants to kill me. You think you can? I mean, my own flesh and blood. Yeah, you're good. You're, it ain't nothing. Verse 12. It may be that the Lord will look on my affliction, and that the Lord will repay me with good for his cursing this day. And as David and his men went along the road, Shimei went along the hillside opposite of him and cursed as he went, threw stones at him, and kicked up the dust. Now the king and all the people who were with him became weary, so they refreshed themselves there. Verse 15. Meanwhile, Absalom and all the people, the men of Israel, came to Jerusalem, and Ahithophel was with him. And so it was when Hushai the Archite, David's friend, came to Absalom, that Hushai said to Absalom, "Long live the king, long live the king." So Absalom said to Hushai, "Is this your loyalty to your friend? Why did you not go with your friend?" And Hushai said to Absalom, "No, but whom the Lord and his people and all the men of Israel choose, his I will be, and with him I will remain. Furthermore, whom shall I serve? Should I not serve the presence of his son? As I have served your father's presence, so will I be in your presence." Then Absalom and Ahithophel give advice as to what we should do. And Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Go to your father's concubines, whom he have left to keep in the house, and all of Israel will hear that you have abhorred by your father. Then the hands of all of who are with you will be strong." So they pitched a tent for Absalom on the top of the house, and Absalom went into the father's concubines in the sight of all of Israel. Nasty. Now, the advice of Ahithophel, which he gave in those days, was as if he had inquired at the oracle of God. So was all the advice of Ahithophel, both with David and Absalom. Chapter 17. Moreover, Ahithophel said to Absalom, "Now let me choose 12,000 men, and I will arise and pursue David tonight." I will come upon him while he is weary and weak and make him afraid, and all the people who are with him will flee, and I will strike only the king. Then I will bring back to the people to you. When all return except the man who you seek, all the people will be at peace. And saying, please Absalom and all the elders of Israel. Verse 5, the advice of Hushai. Then Absalom said, now call Hushai the Archite also, and let us hear what he says too. And when Hushai came to Absalom, and Absalom spoke to him, saying, Ahithophel has spoken in this manner. Shall we do what he says? If not, speak up. So Hushai said to Absalom, the advice of Ahithophel has given is not good at this time. For, said Hushai, you know your father and his men, and that they are mighty men, and they are enraged in their minds like a bear robbed of her cubs in the field. And your father is a man of war and will not camp with the people. Verse 9, surely by now he has hidden in some pit or some other place, and it will be when some of them are overthrown at first that moreover hears it, it will say, there is a slaughter among the people who follow Absalom. And even he who is valiant, whose heart is like the heart of a lion, will melt completely, for all of Israel knows that your father is a mighty man, and those who are with him are valiant men. Therefore, I advise that all Israel to be fully gathered to you from Dan to Beersheba, like the sand that is by the sea for multitude, and that you go to battle in person. So we will come upon him into the place where he may be found, and we will fall on him as the dew falls on the ground, and of him and all the men who are with him, there shall not be left so much as one. Moreover, if he has withdrawn into a city, then all of Israel shall bring ropes to that city, and we will put it into the river, and there is not one small stone found there. So Absalom and all his men of Israel said, the advice of Hushai and Archite is better than the advice of Ahithophel. For the Lord had purposed to defeat the good advice of Ahithophel to intent that the Lord might bring disaster to Absalom. Hushai warns David to escape. Verse 15. Then Hushai took to Zodach and Abithar, the priests. Thus and so Ahithophel advised Absalom and the elders of Israel, and thus so I have advised. Now therefore send quickly and tell David, saying, do not spend this night in the plains of the wilderness, but speedily cross over, lest the king and all the people who are with him be swallowed up. Now Jonathan and Ahimaaz stayed in En Rogel, for they dared not to be seen coming into the city. So a female servant would come and tell them, and they would go and tell King David. Nevertheless, a lad saw them and told Absalom. But both of them went away quickly and came to a man's house in Burahim, which had a well in his court, and he went down into it. Then the women took and spread a covering over the well's mouth and spread ground on it, and the thing was not known. And when Absalom's servants came to the woman at the house, they said, where are Ahimaaz and Jonathan? So the woman said to them, they have gone over to the water brook, and they had searched and could not find him, and they returned to Jerusalem. Now it came to pass after they had departed, and they came up to the well and went and told King David, and said to David, arise and cross over the water quickly, for thus has Ahithophel advised against you. So David and all the people who were with him arose and crossed over to the Jordan. By morning light, not one of them was left who had not gone over the Jordan. Now when Ahithophel saw that his advice was not followed, he saddled a donkey and arose and went home to his house, to his city. Then he put his household in order and hanged himself and died. And he was buried in his father's tomb. Then David went to what? Wow. That spirit of guilt was on him. Then David went to Mahanaim, and Absalom crossed over the Jordan, and he and all of the men of Israel with him. And Absalom made Amasa captain of the army instead of Joab. And Amasa was the son of a man whose name was Jithra, an Israelite, and had gone into Abigail, the daughter of Nahash, sister of Zerai, Joab's mother. So Israel and Absalom encamped in the land of Gilead. And now it happened when David came to Manahem that Shobi, the son of Nahashath from Rabbah of the people of Ammon, Machir, the son of Amiel from Lo Debir, and Barzil and Gileadite from Rogelim, bought beds and basins, earthen vessels, and wheat, barley and flour, parched grain and beans, lentils and parched seeds, honeys, curds, sheep, and cheese of the herd for David and the people who were with him to eat, for they did. And the people were hungry and weary and thirsty in the wilderness. Okay. Actually, let's go ahead and read chapter 18. I know we were going to stop at 17, but let's go ahead. Chapter 18, Absalom's defeat and death. And David numbered the people who were with him and set captains of thousands and captains of hundreds over them. Then David sent out 1/3 of the people under the hand of Joab, 1/3 under the hand of Abishai and the son of Zerai, Joab's brother, and 1/3 under the hand of the Ittai the Gittite. And the king said to the people, I will also surely go out with you myself. But the people answered, You shall not go out. For if we flee away, they will not care about this, nor if half of us will die, will they care about us. But you are worth 10,000 of us now, for you are now more help to us in the city. Then the king said to them, Whatever seems best to you, I will do. But the king stood beside the gate, and all of the people went out by the hundreds and the thousands. Now the king had commanded Joab, Abishai, and Ittai, Deal gently Deal gently for my sake. And the young man, Absalom, and all the people heard when the king gave all the captains orders concerning Absalom. So the people went out to the field of battle against Israel, and the battle was in the woods of Ephraim. The people of Israel were overthrown there before the servants of David, and a great slaughter of 20,000 took place that day. For the battle there was scattered over the face of the whole countryside, and the woods devoured more people that day than the sword devoured. Then Absalom met the servants of David. Absalom rode on a mule. The mule went under the thick boughs of a great terebinth tree, and his head caught in the terebinth, and so was left hanging between heaven and earth. And the mule which was under him went on. That is very descriptive. Now a certain man saw it and told Joab and said, I saw Absalom hanging in a terebinth tree. So Joab said to the man who told him, You just saw him? And why did you not strike him to the ground? I would have given you 10 shekels of silver and a belt. But the man said to Joab, Though I were to receive 1,000 shekels of silver in my hand, I would not raise my hand against the king's son. For in our hearing the king commanded you and Abishai and Ittai, saying, Beware lest anyone touch the young man of Absalom. Otherwise, I would have dealt falsely against my own life, for there is nothing hidden from the king, and you yourself would have set yourself against me. Then Joab said, I cannot linger with you. And he took 3 spears in his hand and thrust them through Absalom's heart while he was still alive in the midst of the terebinth tree. And 10 young men who bore Joab's armor surrounded Absalom and struck and killed him. So Joab blew the trumpet, and the people returned from pursuing Israel, for Joab held back the people. And they took Absalom and cast him into a large pit in the woods and laid a very heap of stones over him. Then all of Israel fled, everyone to his tent. Now Absalom in his lifetime has taken and set up a pillar for himself, which is in the king's valley, for he said, I have no son to keep my name in resemblance. He called the pillar after his own name, and to this day it is called Absalom Monument. Verse 19. Then Ahimaaz, the son of Zodak, said, let me run now and take the news to the king, how the Lord has avenged him of all his enemies. And Joab said to him, you shall not take the news this day, for you shall take the news another day. But today you shall take no news, because the king's son is dead. Then Joab said to Hushai, go tell the king what you have seen. So the Cushite bowed himself to Joab and ran. And Ahimaaz, the son of Zadok, said again to Joab, but whatever happens, please let me also run after the Cushite. So Joab said, why will you run, my son, since you have no news ready? But whatever happens, he said, let me run. And so he said to him, run. Then Ahimaaz ran by the way of the plain and outran Cushite. Now David was sitting between the two gates, and the watchman went up to the roof over the gate to the wall, lifted his eyes, and looked. And there was a man running alone. Then the watchman cried out and told the king, and it oof, told the king, I lost my place. Where are we? Then the watchman saw another man running, and the watchman called to the gatekeeper and said, there is another man running alone. And the king said, he also brings news. So the watchman said, I think the running of the first is like the running of Ahimaaz, the son of Zodak. And the king said, he is a good man and comes with good news. So Ahimaaz called out and said to the king, all is well. And then he bowed down with his face on earth before the king and said, blessed be the Lord who has delivered up the man who raised their hand up against the Lord, my lord the king. And the king said, is the young man Absalom safe? Ahimaaz answered, when so Ahimaaz answered, when Joab sent the king's servant and me to your servant, I saw a great tumult. But I did not know what it was about. And the king said, turn aside and stand here. So he turned aside and stood still. And then the Cushite came. And the Cushite said, there is good news, my lord and king, for the Lord has avenged you this day of all of those who rose against you. And the king said to the Cushite, is the young man Absalom safe? So the Cushite answered, may the enemies of my lord the king and all that rise against you do harm be like that young man. Then the king was deeply moved and went to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, he said, oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died in your place. Oh, Absalom, my son. And that is the end of chapter 18. And very interesting, right? Okay, and we will continue with chapter 19. We're going to finish this Bible this year.